Welcome to the first module for ANTH416, Gender, Culture, and Health. In this course, we will be examining how anthropological tools can provide useful lenses through which to view various contemporary health issues. It allows us to ask different kinds of questions about health and disease than one might normally consider. Let's use HIV as a brief example of this. When I say HIV, perhaps you think of something like how HIV is spread or how it's treated. Maybe your mind goes towards thinking about viral replication inside of the body. Maybe you can remember a public health campaign addressing HIV or a sex ed class you took in high school that addressed HIV. In this class, we will consider how anthropology offers us a chance to probe for different types of information. What is the lived experience of a woman with HIV like in Denver? Is that experience different than an HIV-positive child in Mexico City? Certainly, they both have the same virus inside of their bodies, but when we consider how gender and culture can impact the lived experience with a disease, we can start to see a more nuanced picture. By considering gender and culture to be relevant factors in health, we can make sense of various health outcomes. This course will also be sure to examine other contextualizing factors such as political systems, economics, history, and religion, to name a few things. Another important aim for this class is to discover the importance of including anthropology in a public health and global health paradigm. Throughout this class, we will consider how anthropology can be useful in a practical and applied manner to deal with health issues around the world. This concept has creeped into popular media from time to time, and you'll get to hear a little bit about this when you listen to the NPR report assigned for this week. Robert Hahn and Marcia Inhorn, who are the editors of a volume titled Anthropology and Public Health, Bridging Differences in Culture and Society, also take up this topic of anthropology's relevance to public health in their introduction to their book. You will be reading this introduction as one of your assignments this week, and I want to take some time to highlight some terminology they utilize, as well as some other general terms and concepts that may be helpful as we begin our course. We must first take some time to consider the definition of culture. Is it defined by geography or shared customs, religion, ethnicity, race? Lawrence J. Kermeyer and Norman Sartorius provide a helpful definition to shed some light on this confusion. They state that current anthropological views emphasize that cultures are fluid, heterogeneous, hybrid systems of knowledge, institutions, discourse, and practices that vary over time and location. Contemporary views of culture recognize the dynamic interplay between individuals' agency and social processes of discursive and institutional power, often expressed through the control of technical knowledge and professional authority. This is not to say that this is the only acceptable way to define or think about culture. In fact, I would encourage you to make it a practice to notice how various authors use this concept and consider defining it for yourself in your own writing. What I find helpful about this particular definition is twofold. First, they describe culture as fluid and dynamic, meaning that we should not necessarily view culture as a static or unchanging entity. Furthermore, they describe a relationship between the individual and their culture. This is a two-way street. Individuals affect their cultures, and cultures affect the individuals belonging to them. Another term we should begin to familiarize ourselves with is medical anthropology. In your assigned reading, Hahn and Inhorn define medical anthropology as a subfield of anthropology, which focuses on the interrelationships of society, culture, and biology on the one hand, and sickness and healing on the other. And you can find this on page 8. They importantly note that medical anthropologists can have differing opinions and theoretical perspectives, but there are some commonalities in the approach that these anthropologists tend to take. So take some time to locate the 4 premises the authors outline in the chapter and try to summarize each of these concepts for yourself. Of course, this class will also be using gender as a critical lens through which to study various health issues. That being said, it is essential that we differentiate between the terms sex and gender from the very outset of the course. Sex refers to whether or not a person has male, female, or intersex biological characteristics. Gender, on the other hand, refers to the behaviors that are associated with a particular sex. I encourage you to take a moment to explore the resource that I've provided in our module for this week from the American Psychological Association, which defines these again and some other helpful terminology that may be useful as we proceed through the course. This course will also spend time considering the biomedical paradigm of disease and other potential alternatives. Emily Martin's article that you are assigned for this week is a classic example of how our Western concept of biology as a natural, inherent, and purely factual entity is actually greatly impacted by cultural ideas and narratives, and oftentimes this happens very quietly and insidiously. This is a concept that we will keep track of in our coursework this semester, particularly when the cultural narratives that infiltrate apparently factual data have a gender dynamic, as in Martin's egg and sperm discussion. I hope this brief discussion will help orient you towards your readings for this week, where most of the learning is going to occur.